It's the Week 10 East County Friday Football Review with Adam Paul of ECPreps. I'm Ramon Scott. Adam, we might only have a few shows left, so we might as well make this one a good one. And I think one way to start it off would be to talk about one of the biggest stars out here in the East County and what's going on with him. I mean, there were some great games last week. We want to touch on those. But how about Jaheim Allen Pompey, Adam, last week? He had another big night, adding to those record totals. We don't want to make anything more difficult for Jaheim. I was hanging out with his family last week over at the television station on the highlights show and really enjoyed talking to them. And you talk about how humble he is and tell us where he stands right now in this pursuit, not only, Adam, of his national marks for receiving yards, but in the local record books as well.
Yeah, Jaheim Allen Pompey, he had 16 receptions last week in that narrow, heartbreaking loss to West Hills, 28-27. We talked about how, you said he leads the national numbers and, the local numbers. We've been kind of corrected in the last couple of days as far as the local mark for all-time yardage in a receiving yardage in a season, which is good because we need to be given accurate information as possible. It's not Malachi Russell of Orange Glen that holds that record, but Chris Olave, who currently is at starring at Ohio State, or the Ohio State, I should say. Back in 2017, for Mission Hills, who had that 12, they finished 12-1, losing to Helix in the Open Division Championship. Anyways, Olave had 1,764 yards, and he also caught 93 passes in 2017. So it's not the 1,742 by Orange Glen's Malachi Russell back in 2016, but you know what? It may be 1,764, but in the grand scheme of things, that's not very much more than what Jaheim needs to break the record.
Yeah, Adam, I'll tell you what. I'll make a deal with you, okay? Or I'll make a deal with Jaheim. We're going to tack on another 21 yards or 19 yards, whatever it is. I didn't quite get the number that you said, and you'll tell me here after the show, or even right now. You can remind me. I'll write it down. So I didn't, but I think Jaheim and Malachi Russell, great player, was an awesome player, right? Here's the thing for Jaheim. Okay, so you got to get another 20 yards this Friday night. And by the way, Adam, you're going to have a pretty good statistician there. I'm going to take in this one. I want to see this record-setting performance. But you know what? If Jaheim gets it, how about that? He'll be passing Chris Olave on the season all-time single-season receiving list. That's a pretty awesome name to pass.
Absolutely.
In the record books that might be there for a long time to come, because we already know Mount Miguel's headed for the postseason. Looks pretty good no matter what happens, this Friday night. But I just think that's great. I appreciate your information. I think that's important information that everyone should take note of. But he's also going to set some more records possibly when we get to the postseason. But I think that's the one to focus on this weekend. Go ahead, Adam. We got to talk about the West Coast Mountain Hill game too.
And it's not just the receiving yards that he has a chance to break. By the way, thank you to Eric Williams for providing that the information. Appreciate that, my friend. He has 85 catches on the season. Jaheim does. Okay. Well, the section record is 96, so he only needs 12 more catches to break that record, which was set by AJ Kemp of Palo Verde in 2006.
Okay.
So he can break both records in the next game
Yeah.
if he has a big enough night.
Yeah, and he's right on the edge of going past also the conference record before that. So it could be close in there. 16 receptions. Maybe we can talk a little bit about the game. We can talk about Jaheim for hours. These
Sure.
records, and I can't wait to see this Friday night. It's going to be awesome. But 16 catches. They might be making a concerted effort to get the ball to him, but you've seen that play that they run. That's kind of a dangerous play. I mean, they're not cherry picking this record. It's a play that Mount Miguel uses. It's a short pass using the tight end or slot back sometimes to help in the blocking scheme to get Jaheim the ball and start moving up the field. Now we know he's terrific on downfield passes and can work away from double teams and even in his slightest frame out jump some of those defensive backs for the ball. Sometimes he's so incredible. I just really look forward to that, and I think that he'll set all these records, and I just hope that there's a football future for Jaheim. I think he wants there to be a football future. Adam, I predicted this game exactly right this week. I finally
saw
got
that
exactly right this season. West Hills beat Mount Miguel 28-27, and I told Jaheim when I saw him there at the TV station, I said, well, I guess I should have picked Mount Miguel 28-27, an important win for the Wolfpack. Let's talk about them. They are in the Grossmont Valley League championship game this Friday night. No ifs, ands, or buts. They can win their share with a victory that would create a three-way tie. Nice job, nice performance by West Hills. The Klingerman brothers, again, a great game. Brendan Green, Steve Christini, Gerardo Hernandez.
Yeah, no, they definitely, have basically been playing playoff playoff light games these last couple weeks. With Santana losing last week, or excuse me, 2 weeks ago now at Monte Vista, that gave West Hills an opportunity, and West Hills, they had to get over the hurdle of Mount Miguel, who's no slouch, as we've discussed, and they held on, and it sets up this year in Santee. It's not at Monte Vista this year. It's in Santee Friday night, the main event. West Hills hosting Monte Vista, who's no slouch either. For winner take, but not winner take all, but a share of the Grossmont Valley League title. Now, if West Hills, beats Monte Vista, it's going to be West Hills, Monte Vista, and Santana, all sharing the league title. If Monte Vista wins, they clinch it outright by themselves. I think it's going to be a great game. If it happens to be a three-way, it'd be Santana's first league crowns in 20 years, 1999. Monte Vista, of course, the last couple years has either had a share of it or by themselves. And then West Hills has had league titles within the last couple years as well. Either way, it's going to be a great game, and it's going to bolster playoffs because the next day is the playoff seeding. It's going to be a great game for those who attend.
Yeah, great job by West Hills to get to this point. You mentioned Santana. They still have to beat El Cajon Valley. Let's just be clear on that. I'm just making a technicality out of it. No doubt about it. Santana, will win against El Cajon Valley, but they will have to win that game in order to gain their share should West Hills win. So just want to talk about those guys, Cole Klingerman, Kip Klingerman. They combined, I believe, for 3 touchdowns in the game last week. Stephen Christini, 67 yards rushing, 4 catches, including the decisive touchdown catch. And he also recorded an interception. Also, West Hills Wolfpack senior Nick Rodriguez had a sack against the Matadors. So great performance by West Hills. We just wanted to kind of start off with Jaheim because he's moving in on more records this week in their game against Del Norte. Now, Adam, just to touch on that, Del Norte on the surface, it looks like they're 2-7. They were in the Palomar League. They were 0-5. Let's make it clear. But Del Norte, played a very, very tough schedule in the Palomar League. It's not avocado-ish. It's not Western League, but it is the Palomar League. And one of their wins did come against the Eastern League champion, or at least they've clinched a share, La Jolla. La Jolla, winning one of their first titles in nearly 2 decades. So that's a pretty good team this year, La Jolla. So that shows Del Norte can play some pretty good football. And I think that Mount Miguel, I don't think that Coach Starr is going to sell them short. He's going to let them know, don't look at that record, because they're probably a very equal team to Mount Miguel in this football game. And it's funny because certainly the defensive backs are going to be on the lookout for Jaheim. When I asked Jaheim about the Klingerman brothers and all those West Hills guys, they have a pretty nice secondary. It's kind of interesting because the matchup here kind of favors the Monarchs a little bit, but West Hills at home gives them their edge, having the home field advantage in that game. But we think of West Hills as speed players a little bit. Mayhew does hold it down inside. But I said, Jaheim, were those Klingerman brothers the guys on you in that game? He's pretty humble. He's pretty honest, right? And I believe him. He said, it seemed like the whole team was on me.
Well, I mean, considering that, he's pretty much the guy for Mount Miguel, besides Laverdier. I mean, so yeah, it would seem like the whole team would be on you.
Yeah.
So, the fact that he had 16 catches in that game, that's pretty impressive.
Right.
For probably having double and triple team on him the whole time.
Right. And like I said, they do run a play that's kind of a design, short pass that's a forward pass. It's thrown just maybe 1 yard or so behind the line of scrimmage, and then he picks up blocks along the way. And that's a play that they've used, a play that really against very superior teams kind of has been stopped, but it still gets a catch. And when you get 160 yards on 16 catches, that's pretty good. 10 yards a catch. We know Jaheim, he's not a possession receiver as well. I mean, he can get downfield. He can go up against defensive back. He can get out of that double team. So, just an incredible year, and I can't wait to see him once again this week. You mentioned that, JD and Jaheim, the great tandem that they have, but I will also mention that Anthony Mitchell did have 82 yards of total offense. He caught 4 passes. Kojo Miller caught 5 passes last week. So JD had a pretty big game, 27 of 44 passing. So, I think Mount Miguel knows they're in. It really would help them to win, and they would for sure be in. They might even be in with a loss. They did pretty well to get those wins earlier in the year, and they don't want to cut it close. 4-6, you lose to a Del Norte team, and that's 2-7. That's might end up hurting. I don't know, but anyway, I think there's going to be some passing by the Matadors, and I think it could be a record-setting night again for Jaheim. Not only in that category that you mentioned, Adam, all-time single-season record in the section, but you know what? He had those 16 catches last week, Adam. 17 is the section record. He almost hit another record. So I think that 20 receptions isn't out of the question this Friday night. No. I promise you. Unless, they're going to, hey, look, it might be a good idea. If you really need to win this football game, I could see Mitchell and Kojo getting more action, especially if the huge focus is on Pompey. Del Norte says, you know what? They're just going to line up against Jaheim and not even worry about the other guys. Mount Miguel says, you know what? We might need to win this football game. Let's throw to these other guys on single coverage. They're starting to look like they're doing a pretty good job. They get open because Jaheim attracts so much attention. But you know what? You only get one shot at this.
Sure.
You get an opportunity like this. I think Starr relishes those kind of opportunities. I think he's proud of the mentorship of this combination and his quarterback. So I think 20 receptions isn't out of the question. I think he'll get 15 for sure.
Well, I'll tell you what. If he breaks any or all these records, he there. I don't see how he does not get any consideration for all CIF. Even if he comes close to have 90 something, let's say 90 plus catches in a season. I don't care who you're playing for.
Yeah.
That's pretty dang impressive. And to have almost 2,000 yards receiving, again, I don't care who you're playing for. You could be playing for, I don't know, Division Five Yucca Valley or whoever. But you get my point.
Yeah. Yeah. And you look at the county receivers, Adam, there's some very nice ones, some very good ones, and some good prospects
Yes.
For future stardom, for
Yes.
college. But their statistics really, maybe because they end up, those great receivers that we know that are out there, they kind of play elite schedules. So their stats are kind of held down a little bit because those games are really, there's a little bit of ground and pound to them. There's a lot of great defenders on the other teams, and they don't necessarily have the statistics. So I think the statistics are going to kind of outweigh it in this case, and I think that the committee is going to be, kind of lean towards making him a first teamer. I think these statistics are just too hard to ignore.
Absolutely. I don't see how you can't ignore them. Like I said, I had this conversation on the 97.3 FM The Fan show the other night when I was talking about this, talking about the game, Mount Miguel and West Hills, and talking about Jaheim and so forth and what he's done. And because Coach mentioned another player for Helix, Keontae Scott, who we'll talk about. Um, and he was intrigued, just like everybody else I've mentioned Jaheim about has been intrigued. They're like, really? I'm like, yeah. He should be a person that is on the radar of everybody, pretty much, not just him, but JD Laverdier and everything as well. I mean, thrown for over almost 3,000 yards again. I mean, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and just the way he conducts himself, you saw him
Yes.
on the TV show last week, and just
Mhm.
did a great job. And I thought his answer was great. That the social media question came in and said, "What would you rather have? 2,000 receiving yards or a CIF championship?" And he told me before, I was kind of going over the questions with him, and he said, well, if I think when he got on stage, he just, well, I'd like to have both, which is a great answer. But
Sure.
before he went on with Rudy, he said, well, he looked at it quite thoughtfully. He said, well, if we make the playoffs, then I can get that other record. And so he puts the facts together. If I can win 1, 2, maybe even another game somewhere in those playoff games, I'm gonna get that 2,000. So it's no problem.
Yeah.
It's not gonna get 2,000. I don't know. He might get 350 yards this week. But anyway, let's move on for the Jaheim Allen Pompey show. Jaheim, you had your own show. You're all over the place. What can you say? Historic player.
Yep.
Adam, you went out to see a great game, and I think everybody called it that it would be close, and I think it was, kind of close. A pretty good game. I watched the game on Orange Nation TV, so I saw it as well, and it was a very, very good game. Valhalla winning 28-20 in an important game. But despite those records, this was a very important game.
Yeah, it really was because both teams on the cusp. In the Division III playoffs, El Cap was in the 12 spot, and Valhalla was in the 8 spot, 8 or 9, I think it was. After El Cap's huge win the previous week against Granite, it vaulted them into the playoff ranking. And as you and I discussed previously, this was going to be a game that was going to either make or break, possibly for both squads. And it was a good game. It wasn't a great game, but it was a good game. It was exciting. Josh Meredith. It's unfortunate that he wasn't able to play an entire season for the Norsemen. Holy cow, is he quick! boy, oh boy, scoring that first touchdown. And of course, El Cap came back, and it was back and forth, and excuse me, El Cap scored to make it 21-20, and they went to tie it, and it was a blocked extra point. For the longest time was the big difference, and then Valhalla scored to basically put the game away, pretty much 28-20. El Cap had a shot to kind of go down the field, but couldn't take advantage of it. In the end, Keegan again ran the ball a bunch of times, 30 times for 154 yards and 3 touchdowns. And again, like I said, Josh Meredith, he had 84 rushing yards and the touchdown, and he also had a interception of Wickhauser.
Okay. Well, for El Capitan, I think Donnie Green scored a touchdown in the game. They also had Wickhauser passing for touchdowns to Kalen Lavallee, as well as Sean Dixon. And Dixon was out there at Southwestern College taking in that game on recruitment night down in Chula Vista on Saturday night. So I thought it was a great job by the Vaqueros. They played as if their backs were to the wall, which they were. And look, Adam, I don't want to say it this way. I mean, I know we put a lot of pressure on El Cap and said, hey, you know what? You really need this game to make the playoffs. Well, you know what? They might not make the playoffs, but they could win this week against Grossmont, and they still could find a way, possibly, just maybe, to get in the playoffs. It would be very, very close. But, Grossmont, they're in. That's the thing. Grossmont's in. They are kind of playing for a home field in the first round of the Division I playoffs. Even if they win, it's going to be close. So, Grossmont, that their life might have been taken out of them a little bit. I think they're going to be motivated. They know they can win. But El Cap, got to give you this. One last-ditch effort, one last chance. If you can win this game at home, Grossmont making their longest trip of the season, by the way, 8.5 miles, Adam. But El Cap's got a shot anyway this week if they can get that win.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. That whole strength of schedule component, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens there. Let's just say El Cap loses tomorrow night against Grossmont, and they're in the 12th spot as it is right now. Are they going to stay ahead of Mount Carmel and Kearney? Excuse me, to get that last spot in the Division III playoffs? It's going to be slim, I think. It's going to be close. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Again, it's senior night out at El Cap. See if they have one more upset in their up their sleeve on Friday night.
All right. Well, obviously it was a big game. We had some other big games we'll talk about them right now, but I think you chose that one because you knew it was going to be close. You knew it was maybe wasn't the prettiest, but I think you got the close result that you thought would be there, and some of these other games weren't too close.
Yeah, it was a hard fought game on both sides, and like I said, it was 21. Should have been tied 21 apiece, but Valhalla was able to get the big paw up and block the extra point attempt, and it kind of went on from there. I'll tell you what, Josh Meredith, man, like I said, if he'd been able to play the whole entire year, man, Valhalla might have a winning record possibly.
Sure. And, things are looking good for Valhalla. I think they can be confident moving forward into the postseason. All right. Here's one of those games I talked about, and this is what I went to, Adam. I thought, it'd be a little closer. But Steel Canyon, I was glad to see them again because I've been continuously impressed by this team. When I got to the game, I saw Jeremy Mendez-Gall. He had his ring finger on his hand taped up, so he is out for this game and for the game against Helix, unfortunately. Now, they did have their backup, who is a very capable-looking quarterback, believe me, in this game this past Friday. Steel Canyon with the rock and roll over Grossmont 58-3. They did it with defense, offense, and special teams.
Yeah, I mean, obviously missing Junior Akintunde on both offense and defense is another big blow to that defense. But to do what they did against a high-powered offense of Grossmont, when I kept seeing the updates, I'm like, whoa, okay, what's going on? Excuse me. Antoine Walker for Steel Canyon, sorry. Steel Canyon had an 80-yard catch from Chris Carter on the first play, according to what the notes said. The notes say off the UT. Carter also had 64 yards rushing and a 37-yard touchdown, 40 yards receiving and a 60-yard touchdown on a punt return. So there's more special teams. So does that mean Coach Longerbones they're going to the buffet?
3 straight weeks now.
That's awesome. No, I mean, and Walker, he had 2 catches for 90 yards and 2 touchdowns. Wesley Neely ran the ball 17 times for 122 yards and 2 touchdowns. And of course, the big guy, via Ayu Morse, with his 11th sack, set the all-time school single season records for most sacks in a season. So congratulations to Mr. Viamu Ayu Morse. That's pretty impressive. Impressive to get double digits on the year for sacks.
I think he's a candidate for county defensive player of the year. He may be the East County defensive player of the year right now, Adam. There's a lot of great defenders. Jeremiah Fletcher of Helix comes to mind, but I don't know. Rugby might be the man.
He's such a big force to be reckoned with, and even when he doesn't, get his big paws in the play, he causes havoc just because he has to either be double or triple teamed. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I mean, he's just a big body. And like I said, even when he doesn't get a sack or, whatever, he makes an impact on the front line because he has to be blocked or else.
Well, Adam, not much movement in the UT poll. I don't know if we can talk about it. Is it midnight yet? That's why we do this show so late.
We can talk about it, of course.
Okay. I didn't know. I thought maybe we were on, what do we call it when we can't reveal the information until the next day?
No, it's already been posted.
Okay. Well.
How'd you vote? Where'd you vote him at?
Well, I got Steel Canyon number 4, of course. I mean, I got them in that top 4. I want them to get into that. I mean, our vote doesn't count for anything, but a lot's going to come down to this game this week, Adam. But go ahead.
I actually had them at number 3 in my poll, just because. I mean, to do what they did again, like I said, against a high-flying offense of Grossmont, who had been putting up points after points. Obviously, up until last week, 54-14 to Helix. But my point being is that Grossmont was no slouch. And to hold them to only 3 points, that's impressive. And I understand Carlsbad went undefeated in the Avocado League. I get that. I understand that. But you can't just dismiss a 55-point woodshed shellacking by the Cougars.
Well, somebody's got them. Look, there's 31 voters. They came in 5th. We're just 2 of 31. I have them 4th. You have them 3rd. Somebody's got them down like 6th or 7th. I know. Yeah, hey, I love all those guys on the list. I'm glad they're doing it. I think it's fun. I think the poll is fun. I think the poll's awesome. But they're 5th. They're behind, Saints right now. I don't know. I think Steel beats Saints right now.
The only thing I can say about that, my answer is, and our good friend Brett Fisher brought it up. on schedule. Don't get me wrong, Steel Canyon's played a decent schedule, but it's not compared to, say,
in those CIF power rankings.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be close. This week I'm not expecting surprises. Carlsbad does have a tough game, but I think they should win.
I think so. Are they playing? They're playing LCC, or who are they playing? You know?
I do have that. I know that the Saints are going to win, so that's going to kind of be a factor.
Yeah, Cathedral's got Lincoln, so that's always an interesting game. It's a Lincoln week, and obviously Helix is obviously playing Steel Canyon in the biggest game out here in the East County because it is the East County game of the week for KOSI.
Yeah, and I still have Lincoln. I'm one of the guys still with Lincoln. I mean, I still squeak them in there in the top 10. I mean, look at the schedule. I understand, this happens every year for Lincoln hype, but they got a puncher's chance in that game.
Sure.
Look. Yeah, right now, Adam, just looking it up. I looked it up, and I wanted to be able to have this information so I could explain this, but we might just have to move on if I can't catch up here on it. I want to talk about it a little bit more. I want to talk about Steele a little more, especially if Antoine's still watching in the D, but also want to talk about the offense because they're going to have to rely this week on Ilya Karizmasi. And he looked great. He looked really great, actually. I don't think, as much as I like Jeremy, and he's done a great job this season, Ilya is a junior, and he doesn't have the experience that Jeremy's been able to acquire during this season as it came down in training camp. Karizmasi was battling with Mendez-Gal for the job and, ended up maybe a little bit short. Maybe Longerbone just said, well, you know what? I got these two guys. They're kind of the same quarterback. I got one's a senior, one's a junior. I'll start the senior, see what happens. Well, Mendez-Gal did not make any mistakes, really. He just was run the team just fine. We know they've got great special teams, great defense, great players surrounding him. So he just had to go out and do the job. When you're an undefeated quarterback, you aren't going to lose your job. When they brought in Ilya in situations where they've had a lead, he's done a nice job. And they've let him cut loose a little bit too. Sure, they've been a bit conservative, as maybe they sometimes are on offense, especially when they're playing weaker teams. Just get the work in. The running clock is on. But Ilya has run for touchdowns in those games. He's passed for touchdowns in those games. He's accumulated a little bit of statistics. He's like, I don't know, I looked it up. He's like, 9 for 13 or 12 for 16, something like that. Just real darn efficient. So he can come in. He's a little bit bigger, I think, than Jeremy too. So he'll be in the game this week against Helix. He had 168 yards in the game last week against Grossmont, so did a pretty nice job in that game. 2 touchdown passes in his first varsity start. So he stepped in. He's probably a little nervous, Longerbone said, getting his first start in a big lead game, but he's going to have confidence in him, and that offensive line just does a great job. James Bradle, Utolo Samawata, Darren Roldan, Isaac Hernandez, and Logan Hicks. So they're going into that game, Adam, this week. Go figure, they beat Helix last time they played them. They're undefeated right now. Helix does have that loss to Harriman, and still the Cougars, if you go by these projections, and the projections, for all the criticism, they're sometimes kind of very accurate. But I don't know about this one. I certainly don't have the Cougars 2 touchdowns behind Helix, especially at home. This is going to be a dogfight. Dogs and cats.
Yeah, it's interesting that the projection is 2 touchdowns. I don't think it's going to be 2 touchdowns either. I think it's going to be a pretty close game. It's going to come down obviously to who makes the least amount of mistakes. Obviously, Karizmasi also he rushed for a touchdown in that game last week against Grossmont also to go with his 2 touchdown passes. Obviously, this is for all the marbles on Friday night out at Steel Canyon. Get there early. obviously, I think, because it's going to be packed. So that's going to be interesting also with the with that small stadium and lack of seating. So get there early. Um, but it's going to be a great time on Friday night between the two heavyweights of Helix and Steel, and yeah, like I said, I don't think you say it's a 14 point um, line as we say if there ever was a spread in high school football. Um, I don't think it's going to be that. Like I said, I think it's going to be closer, and yeah, we'll see what happens on
Yeah.
Friday night.
Yeah.
Helix is going to have they got revenge on their minds, obviously from last year.
Look, Mendez Gall is out, Akintunde is out, but El Leon Noah's out,
Yeah,
and he looks, whether or not they missed a beat or not, we'll move on to that game. We're going to cover that game in just a second. I just want to throw in Grossmont. Adam, we got to get a little bit more on Grossmont. I think I went out, like I said, I was out at the game. So want to thank those Grossmont seniors. It was senior night. I'm sorry that it went so awful on that night, because last year on senior night, they were having a down year and they rolled El Cap on senior night last year. But just want to thank Andrew Sanders, who has been Jamie Odom's center his whole varsity career, Brody Schicker, and Cameron Sanderlin for talking to me before the game. The Grossmont Foothillers headed to the playoffs no matter what. And Division One, and hey, win this game. It's going to be close, even with this victory that they are expected to get this week against El Capitan. They very well could have a home game. I think they will. It depends on if there's an upset. If there's this upset, one of those games that we talked about, Adam, then maybe Grossmont falls out of that home game, but it would take an upset, I do believe. I'll move on to the next game now. Still trying to look up that game if I have it, but it's Vista. It's Vista at Carlsbad. Okay,
so that's gonna be a good game. That's no slouch.
Vista. If there's one team in the whole county that you would want to single out, has been like, you're never going to be surprised by a successful Vista team, given the history and tradition of Vista. And I think everyone knew the Vista was going to have a pretty good team, but they've been the team. They've been the fastest riser, or one of the biggest risers this season, up into the poll now, up into the media poll, and obviously, in the Max Preps rankings as well. So Vista's been kind of the team that's charging. If Carlsbad isn't careful, that's where that upset could occur. So, okay, let's move on and talk about the other half of that big showdown this week. And you wanted to talk about mostly a guy. I featured him last week. I thought he would have a big game, and he did have a big game, as did the rest of the Highlanders, making up for the loss of El Leon Noah. If anything, Adam, Granite Hills made it a great game. I mean, this game was in the balance late in the third quarter after Helix got off to a big lead. And then Helix pulled away. Sophomore Christian Washington, who really is kind of El Leon Noah's full-time replacement, even though we know Delshawn Traylor is getting a lot of run now out of the backfield as a running back. But I don't know, hats off to Granite Hills in this game. I think they were really kind of the story for making it such a competitive ball game, way closer than the 22-point margin would indicate.
Yeah, for a while there, it looked like Helix was going to run away with the game, and all of a sudden, I kept getting the updates, and I'm looking at the texts and stuff from PJ of Vanilla Gorilla Photography, and wow, and Granite was making the comeback, and they pulled within whatever it was, and unfortunately they ran out of steam. Obviously, Justice McComb passed for 307 yards and 3 touchdowns. James Johnson caught 9 balls for 84 yards and a touchdown. Matt Healy 4 catches, 117 yards and a touchdown, and Jalen Hall 4 catches, 80 yards and a touchdown. Hats off to the Eagles for making the comeback.
Yeah, Jalen Hall, get used to hearing that name.
Mm-hmm.
The freshman going to be a big time star in the conference. I think that's already a given. We're going to be hearing his name a lot. So
yeah.
Adam, last week, kind of focused on Keontae Scott as my player last week, and wanted to learn a little bit more about his move from Las Vegas. He had actually spent quite a bit of his childhood in both towns with family, and he was looking. Here's a great example. I mean, he was playing at a charter school in Las Vegas, so you're not in your assigned district or school area, if you will. But here's another case why it is important to not delay kids' growth in their athletic careers. He was a kid whose program, Democracy Prep, was just about to switch from 11-man football to 8-man football. He'd racked up some nice stats in a tough division in Las Vegas in 11-man football, but they had a kind of a small team, and they didn't win very many games. They might have been 500. I don't know. They might have been 4-5, 4-6, something like that. But Scott was starting to attract attention. I think he was like a second-team guy in their section up there.
Right.
And when he has family down here, and they started saying, hey, why don't you look into Helix? Well, when he started to look into Helix a little bit, he got excited. And when you see a guy who goes in like this, where really he's a player who looks like he has some athletic talent, now you put him on a team like Helix, and all of a sudden you have a Division I prospect on your hands. Scott caught 3 touchdown passes in the first half last week as part of that lead. Now, maybe you got confused because I think I might have tweeted out the score was 28-27 at one point, and I was wrong, but I've got like 3 phones in my hand. I'm watching the game live, I'm taking stats of that game. So you're right. It's hard when you're watching all the updates, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I love going through the feeds, and thank you to all the social media people on Friday nights for tweeting those updates as frequently as you can. Don't think that one goes overlooked, whatever. I'm waiting for your next tweet. Anybody, whoever you are, tweeting about high school football games involving East County and San Diego teams on Friday night. But Adam, Christian Washington, 3 touchdowns in the second half to help Helix pull away, and he finished with 183 yards for the game. That's quite Noah-like.
Yeah, he's stepped in quite nicely to the role of the running back, for Elion Noah, both him and Delshon. But he's only a sophomore, and you know how it is. They just pluck him out. It seems like they pluck him out of thin air. It seems like, but in all seriousness, it's just amazing that when a player gets hurt, that the next person up just does what they do. Christian Washington 21 times 183 yards. I mean, that's impressive. And like you say, he scored 3 second half touchdowns. Cameron Brown passed for 171 yards and 2 touchdowns on 10 of 17. So that's another, good night for Mr. Brown.
Yeah.
And going back to Keontae Scott, like I was telling you prior to going on the air, when I was on the 97.3 FM The Fan high school show with our good friends Braden Soprana and Coach John Quintera, Coach Quintera asked me when I was previewing this game, Helix and Granite, he brought up Keontae Scott and the fact that he's the numbers that he's put up. It's amazing the numbers that he's putting up, and nobody besides you and I, maybe a couple others, knows who he is. I mean, because Quintera brought up the fact that this is a kid, looking at the numbers and obviously his impact. he should get a look or get noticed or identified in the All CIF meeting.
Right. Well, also because he's done it on defense and special teams as
Yeah.
well. One of the, there are several players like him in the county, but not very many, quite frankly, that, have noticeable statistics in all three phases of the game. So also you talked about the Eagles' success in that game. I want to single out McComb and his 300 yards passing against Helix. And I say it, Adam, not as a slight on McComb at all. In fact, I think it's very, very important the way he led that team back for his development next year and the Eagles to rebound. Look, the Eagles are, they're in the playoffs. I mean, they're in Division I. So, hopefully they can go in and get a road upset in the first round. That'd be awesome. I think they can because of the tough schedule that they've played. All these tough teams, right? But here's the thing about McComb and the success of the Eagles making that comeback early in the second half to get within, it was 8 points is where they got to within, which in itself should be cause for concern for Helix. No slight against Granite. They did a great job almost coming back in that game. They kind of superseded their expectations considering things. They're on this unprecedented losing streak at Granite Hills that they could turn around this week against former arch rival, Valhalla. I don't know if you want to call him that or whatever, but I'm making this comparison about El Elyon Noah's absence and Granite Hill's ability to come back. And what I mean by that is his absence is probably most likely felt on the defensive end. And I think that's where my favoritism possibly for the Cougars comes into play this Friday night. I think that's maybe where the slip-up occurred against the Eagles. You don't want to call a slip-up. They beat them by 22 points, Adam, and I know the Highlanders respect the Eagles, but maybe defensively not having Noah in there is overlooked.
Well, here's how his impact is, because the question again was brought up at the end of the high school show on Thursday night. Coach Quintera asked Braden Soprano about El Elyon Noah, and the question was about yes, he's injured. But what do you do? So what do you do with him when it comes to all CIF and stuff? And Braden Soprano flat out said he's still the player of the year in my vote. In my opinion, that's what he said. He probably should have been player of the year last year. Also, but going this year. Unfortunately, he did get injured. And I understand that. I actually do agree with what Braden had to say about that, because who else has had the impact that El Elyon Noah's had? Like you said, on the defensive side of the ball, right there. I don't know. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens Friday night.
Yeah, I mean, there's a short list of names, obviously, right now for Player of the Year. I mean, the thing about, Cathedral, which is actually, I believe, moved to number 1 in those power rankings.
Yes.
They've just got such an incredible, you're probably I don't know, maybe the Player of the Year is probably a guy like Logan Berzins because he's such an incredible offensive lineman on such an incredible team. But nobody's going to pick it up, right? He's got such a bright future ahead of him as a college offensive lineman. He blocks for Xavier Watson, who's kind of the guy who'll be represented as their candidate for the Player of the Year. But their offensive line, I mean, they could put, they might have 3 of the top 5 offensive linemen in the whole county, maybe 4, really. So that's, kind of tough to quantify. And then you look at some of the other stars for their teams. I don't know, guys like Keontae Springs, Kavika Tua, who's an underclassman, actually, guys like that. So, and obviously Tyler Buckner. I mean, he could be Player of the Year this year if you really wanted him to be. He's a junior, and he definitely has the statistics to show that he should be. He actually might be that guy. He might be the guy that well, he's a junior. We know we're going to, barring injury, be player of the year next year. He's going to even have more massive numbers next year.
He's the
Unless,
he's the Braxton Burmeister guy with the big numbers, playing for a small school. And people are going to hold that against him. But I'll tell you what, I don't care what you say. That kid obviously is going to Notre Dame for a reason. Yeah. I mean, I understand all that stuff's done in camp, done through camps and stuff. But you put him on, say, I don't know, one of these Division I teams, or a more high-profile team. I think he's gonna put up the same numbers.
Yeah. Maybe not so much the same, but I think we would be able to quantify. We would be able to say, look at, even if he put up somewhat less considerable numbers, because there are such elite defenders sometimes, but his numbers would be strong enough where we'd say, wow, look, he's getting these numbers against these defenses.
Mm-hmm.
So. All right, well, that was the Helix and Granite Hills and about 10 other things we talked about. Adam, the Monte Vista Monarchs done a great job. Really, they beat the Braves 35-0. I don't think that's necessarily the story. They had 5 different guys scored touchdowns in this game. Maybe you can tell us who they were or what you think about this, because really the way they've come about and gotten into this position, it's not a surprise necessarily, but it's a great story once again. Sorry to Santana and West Hills. You're going to get your chance. West Hills gets their chance this week, and hey, I'm not crowning Monte Vista at all, but great job by the Monarchs this year. They've really recovered on their season and look very strong heading into the postseason and into this Friday night's championship game.
Yeah, for now I didn't see any stats for Monte Vista, but for Oklahoma Valley Braves, Demarius Hyde ran the ball 16 times for 128 yards for the Braves. So to have 100 yards against the defense of the caliber of the Monarchs, that's pretty good for the Braves.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, for the Monarchs to do what they've done and come back 3-0 in the league and 5-4 overall now, obviously they have one more hurdle in West Hills to get over. It's pretty impressive. Hamamoto, Coach Hamamoto, that's why he's a good coach. He righted the ship with allowing one of the other assistants to call plays, and so they they went to the what do you call it, the tight run game. They call it, a lot of people know it as the butt sniffer offense. And it's they run. That's all they do. It's coming. Try and stop me if you can.
Well, and it is difficult to get the information from Monte Vista. Maybe it's part of their philosophy. I mean, they do preach team over there, and no one individual. Even in Jamon, I mean, we had to start prying the statistics out of them in his senior year, because Monte Vista just doesn't publish their statistics. I'm sure they go over film. I'm sure they keep track of that stuff, but I don't know. It's extra work, so we're not going to fault anybody for not doing anything. But I was able to accumulate some information, and I want to say that information now. Ruben Silva had a 6-yard touchdown run in the second quarter. Victor Meza was out there blocking for him, and then on a 2nd and 8 play at the Braves 29, Isaiah Gardner ran straight up the gut and into the end zone for a 14-0 lead at halftime. In the second half, the kickoff went to Federico Villanueva Jr., who's been doing a great job. He had those 2 interceptions against Santana. Well, he returned the opening kickoff of the second half, 85 yards for a touchdown in the fourth quarter. Xavier Leyva had a 44-yard touchdown run. So great job by those linemen, Jesse Schrader, Jared Reinhold, Aaron Bustos, doing a great job for the Monarchs. And I don't know who's going to win that game this week. I mean, maybe I'm going to give the nod to West Hills because they're at home, and tri-championships are fun. But as I've said before, the Monarchs are the defending champs until they are defeated. They still
Well,
might be the champs.
yeah, I mean, Coach London's going to obviously have to come up with some kind of game plan. Coach Ash, obviously, also. You got two teams that pretty much just about do the same type of thing on offense. You know, they don't pass the ball at all or very often. West Hills does a little bit, obviously. You know, it's going to be an interesting game to see what happens. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a good. I think hopefully a good crowd shows up tomorrow night because I think it's going to be a competitive game. See if the Clearman brothers can, keep doing what they're doing, and Christine and Stephen Christini, you know, and DJ Mayhew, Jake Mayhew also, and if Oberg or Gerardo can throw the sling the ball a little, I think that will be a little bit somewhat of a difference. If West Hills can slow down that Monte Vista offense, obviously, they're going to be obviously watch the film or they've watched film and see what Monte Vista does, has been doing, with the run game and everything. And yeah, I mean, I like West Hills' chances because I think that Coach Ash and Coach London are going to come up with some game plan to slow down the Monarchs. They Coach London did that against El Cap, all those weeks ago when El Cap again was averaging 40 plus points a game, and whatnot. So it's gonna, I think it's gonna obviously be a chess game, on both sides.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, kind of like last week at West Hills. I mean, they were expected to beat Mount Miguel, but they kind of matched up well with Mount Miguel. I mean, Jaheim only had one touchdown reception because I
Right.
think West Hills has those exceptional secondary players, the Klingerman brothers and Christini and all that. But this one obviously is different. And the way we saw Monte Vista, remember West Hills, they tried their hardest, man. They gave it their all. And for the first quarter of the game, they were right in there with West Hills, with Monte Vista. Of course, Jamon was on that team, and Jamon ended up having 5 touchdowns after the first quarter, and they won 35-0. Hats off. Hey, let's not sell it short. Maybe I sold the Monte Vista Monarchs short a minute ago and saying, they could get this championship. Let's make it clear right now, Adam. Monte Vista Monarchs, they are the champions of the Grossmont Valley League this season. It's just a matter of whether or not they're going to share that championship. So congratulations to the Monarchs for their second consecutive league title after 14 years of going without. I think that's the important thing to say about that.
Yeah, big congratulate, hats off to the Monarchs, riding the season, because for a while there, they were losing those games earlier on in the season to teams that they probably shouldn't have lost to, trying to figure out what they, figure out what they were doing. West Hills, obviously, after they lost to Santana, that was a big loss to them. Obviously, losing to your city rival. So you didn't know how they were gonna, bounce back from that. Obviously, they've bounced back enough to get back into the league race. Because again, like I said earlier, they have been, in my opinion, have been pretty much playing a playoff like schedule the last couple weeks. and to be playing for something, this late in the season, like a league title, is always a good thing, and hats off to them.
Yeah, I think the Monarchs had confidence that they could get to this point, in typical Ron Hamamoto fashion. Maybe they, took him a while to get everybody up to speed in the right spot. Such a technical thing with them. And, now that they've got it, they've really done a nice job in taking care of these other opponents. Okay, Adam, don't know if you had a chance. We didn't get many updates on this one, obviously, when we're out there on Friday night. So we had to kind of piece this one together. But Christian traveled to over 550 miles to play a pretty good team near Reno, Nevada. And they were down 31-10 at halftime in this game. But they put up some pretty nice numbers. 3 touchdowns by senior running back Nate Stein. Gabe Krug had 387 yards of total offense, throwing for a pair of touchdowns. Senior Todd Beezer, 11 receptions, 96 yards, and a touchdown. So Christian ended up losing, however, to Fernley, Nevada. Catch anything on that?
I did not see much, at all information on it, other than the the final score. So I do apologize.
No problem there. It just sets up a very important game this week. Christian is going to be in its own league title game against champion La Jolla. La Jolla has clinched at least a share of the Eastern League title. And congratulations, hey Adam! Congratulations to La Jolla and to Scripps Ranch this year on league titles. 20 years in the making. I think La Jolla has actually even been longer. It might have been the mid '90s since they won a league title back with their great legendary coach there back in the mid '90s.
No, hats off to them. It's going to be a good game between the Patriots and the Vikings on Friday night. I think it's going to be a physical game, I think, and it's obviously going to have playoff implications as well. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah. And I'll just add one more score. We could talk about this. Oh, look, I messed up the graphic. But maybe for Horizons Prep's sake, it's a good thing. I'm not going to go back and fix it because we're going to move off this game quickly. It was Foothills Christian. The records are correct. The final score was 60-6. And all that did, Adam, was secure Foothills Christian's spot as the number 1 seed in the 8-man playoffs. I believe in a couple of weeks. They're the number 1 seed by far, and they are expected to win, but they do have some tough challengers that we've talked about in some of the weeks past. I didn't even catch any info on this game, so sorry about that, Foothills Christian. I would love to hear from you. My reporter from the last couple of years hasn't been covering them too much this year, and so. But I do know, obviously, that Coach Joe Mackey's had a great season, and they are in the Final Four of the 8-man playoffs. They play a 4-team format, 2 games. Foothills Christian is expected to win. All right.
Yeah, hats off to the Knights. The Coach Mackey, Coach Hallahan, and staff they've built kind of a mini little dynasty there in the 8-man. They're up there in the winning streak for San Diego section history. They're favored, obviously, win that CIF title for the 2nd year in a row. So hats off to them, and good luck to them also.
Yeah, and I don't know where it stands as far as team size and how things are progressing there. I just remember those articles that were written in the last year or two about the program and how maybe they were not disappointed that they had to move down to 8-man. They just knew it was a decision that they had to make. But when you see this much success from a team, and maybe they didn't get their challenge this year, we'll see. Still got to win a championship again, but they could win the section title again. They're expected to. Those other teams do have good records too, and it could be they could give them a challenge. But you wonder if Foothills isn't thinking they have such high aspirations for their athletic programs, obviously, that you wonder if they might consider a move once again back to 11-man in the near future. So,
right.
Just I'm throwing out there just to make conversation. This show's been long enough, though, Adam, and we have one more regular season week to go, and next week should be a great week because we're going to talk about 3 championship games in the East County. 4, give the other teams credit, to give Santana credit. They're in their own championship game. They have to win to get a share as well, should West Hills pull off that upset against Monte Vista. Anything else, my man?
No, it's going to be a great final night tomorrow night, or excuse me, not tomorrow night. But
You said that earlier. I didn't want to stop you.
No, it's going to be a great night, Friday night, the night after Halloween. So I won't be on. There is no high school radio show on Thursday night on the fan.
It's a national. I know everybody's got kids.
So they're taking the night. So Coach Quintero and Braden's going to a party. He's going to a party or something. And so Coach, they're taking the night off for Halloween. Just because the kids, kids are going to go out trick or treating or whatever. So there's going to be no show, and so obviously I won't be on that. But I'll be providing updates on Friday night. So hopefully you'll text me what's going on in your game.
Yeah.
I'll be out at West Hills Friday night to be checking out the Monte Vista at West Hills game. So if you're out at a game, tweet at us, please, because we want to get these updates, and so we can provide all the information. And be sure to follow us on social media.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to be a great Friday night, because on Saturday morning playoffs, the seedings are going to be determined, and later on in that afternoon, be sure to check out Scorebook Live. San Diego or California or whatever it is, they're going to have all the up-to-date information for all the playoff brackets.
All right, Scorebook Live. I know it's been a rough start, but this is your moment. I know it's been a rough start to the season. Bodie's done a great job. I mean, those articles are great. Every week, those articles are great. I just know that they wanted to see it take hold a little more. I think they wanted to see people using more Scorebook Live. I know that many of the schools have gone and started it or did it and joining in late. But don't forget, Scorebook Live is an official partner of CIF, and for the playoffs, it's supposed to be even more important. So, and not to coach anybody up on their social media. Lord knows I could use some help on my social media. But what Adam is saying, if you can tag at EC_preps_SD in your tweet, then he can retweet it to his many followers. You might have many followers too, but then he tweets it to me and it tweets it to another guy, and I'm at Ramon Scott Poker on Twitter, and that's how we kind of communicate on Friday nights, is we're just watching each other's tweets, knowing what games we're at, and then I like to update the score stream and look at the scores there and look through all the Twitter feeds to get the fastest score possible, because I want to know who's winning. I'm going to want to know who's winning Steel Canyon, the Helix Steel Canyon game. I'm going to be at Monte Vista, okay? It's not the best game, but it's a huge story. I'm going
you mean Mount Miguel.
Mount Miguel, right. It's a huge story for me, so I want to see Jaheim. Going to have reporters at those other games. I mean, we're not ignoring those other games. I'm just one guy. So, but my guys don't always update. I want to see those Helix. I want to see Damon's tweets about the game. I want to get those tweets. I want to know what's going on in Helix Steel Canyon. I really want to know what's going on in that West Hills Monte Vista game. And Monte Vista is a team that I've had a lot of trouble getting information on Friday nights out of. Brett Fisher, supposed to be our Mr. Monte Vista. He's like, "What's the score?" I'm like, "What's you get the score?" So anyways, I really want to know those scores when I'm sitting there at Mount Miguel High School tallying up Jaheim's total. And so please, everybody, get involved. I mean, this thing's still evolving. This is how we're going to do it in the future. So, all right, Adam, great show. Thanks a lot, man.
Yep.
Have a great Friday night. And
happy Halloween.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what? Maybe I might dress up when I go out there on Friday night, even though it's the day after. So, all right. Thanks a lot, Adam. ECPreps. I'm Ramon Scott. Thank you for joining us.